This meeting is being recorded.
Wow, that was obnoxious. Was that your computer saying this meeting is being recorded? Really?
Yes, that was, yeah. So I had to click on there, got it. So,
I'm Amy Tiemann. I'm the CEO of Team One Properties, and I wanted to take a second today to introduce you to somebody who's on my advisory board, Mr. Kippen Schecht, who's known as Kip. He's my buddy Kip. So there you go. So Kip, I'm going to let you take a second to kind of introduce yourself to everybody out there that's interested in TM1 and kind of a little bit about yourself. And maybe you might get to say the university you went to, just saying, maybe. I don't know.
uh,
You might get.
I do always like to plug Texas Tech, but we'll
You
see
do,
if I
you do.
we'll see if I can get that in there, right?
Yeah, maybe. All right, go ahead. Kip.
Well, like as Amy said, my name is Kippen Schecht. I am an architect. I work in the Dallas, the DFW area. At least that's where my firm is. I do work all over the country and focus obviously on architecture, planning, design, interiors, and also landscape. I personally have been working in the Metroplex for over 20 years doing architecture of all sorts of building types. It's something I really enjoy doing. I think outside of that, I mean, I'm a senior project leader at our firm. A lot of people would say like maybe senior project manager is kind of the same correlation on that. It's a very rewarding career throughout the years that I've done it. It's something that I feel like gives back to me. So I really enjoy the work that I do from a day-to-day basis.
Awesome sauce. So what do you see now as challenges in construction or design of multifamily? What are we up against? Just curious.
Well, I mean, this environment it's really, kind of a unique time period, I think, in not only this country, but throughout the world. And that has to do with the pandemic. So what that amounts to, what we see a lot of is, shortages of materials or the availability of materials, lead times. So it's kind of changed our industry a lot on how we do things. We have kind of the process where you kind of design the building and then you get into the construction. What we're seeing a lot of times now is a lot of work being done kind of in front of where we do it typically, as far as reviewing materials and submittals, trying to get in front of lead time so we get materials to the job site on time. There's a lot of change as you're going through on materials and material selections, just because you might find something that you're intending to use on a project, but it's not really readily available. And with those lead times and those the project costs or the material costs skyrocketing, you have to be a little bit more flexible. So I see that we work.
Is your finish schedule ever changing? Like, does it just rotate? Rotate revolving doors with finish schedules?
Well, it does change, and it's, we try to stick to the materials that we're trying to put on projects that are they have specific uses, but you might kind of change your schemes, let's say on the colors, because hey, the 3 different shades of gray that you're hoping to use on this are not available, so you might go to 3 shades of a beige or something like that, or sometimes you will change the materials altogether, which gets tricky, right? Because sometimes you have very specific things that you're trying to accomplish, and those materials serve a specific purpose. But it's there again, a little bit more flexibility, and we work, I think, a lot more with our general contractors and subcontractors to see, what they recommend, because they've got their finger on the pulse on what's available and what they can get, and they get the feedback on lead time. So you try to work with them very, very closely.
Awesome. So talk about modular construction, because we're in workforce housing land, and we're trying to always figure out any way to reduce costs, because we're not charging $5,000 for a 1-bedroom, right? We're charging what normal people can pay. So and when we do developments like that, we're always looking for new ways to do improvements, but into the construction process itself. So talk a little bit about modular and how it impacts that.
Yeah, now modular, that's kind of a newer trend that we've seen kind of a rise in the industry, and it's a really great concept. And some of the beauties with that is, it can speed up construction time. It can help with the quality as well. And I've seen this done in like hospital scenarios. The idea of actually incorporating that into multifamily, I think, is a great idea. And it's a lot of those things are fabricated off-site, and you kind of do your first these little pods, and you can take those, and they have allotments for like your systems that go in the building for like MEP where they connect, and you can have these modular pieces assembled off-site and in quantity. And what you have there is like that repetition, kind of like the assembly line type of process or thought. But you start to have the consistency of that product that comes time and time again because it's assembled time and time again. And it's up there again in a controlled setting, let's say in a factory setting, then it's put upon, a truck and shipped out to whatever job site. So you can save that time once it's constructed, and then it just gets delivered, right? So those materials and those processes happen off-site of where the project is being built. And then it's, sometimes depending on the size of the project, you start to assemble them, use cranes and kind of snap them together, put your systems in there. And then it's a really neat concept. And it's been done before on like I said, like a hospital project, like UT Southwestern utilized that here in the Dallas Metroplex and had a lot of success with that. So it's really good when you're repeating forms, which multifamily does that with the unit types that you use.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the coolest project you've ever worked on?
It's so funny because that's always a loaded question, right? Because it's like kids, right? Who's your favorite kid? And it's like, I love them all, right? And you do, but there's some that stand out, and there's
Yeah.
different reasons why.
Mhm.
I think one of my favorites, it was outside of multifamily. It was for a municipality, which was the city of Fort Worth, and it was a police substation. Great project. It won AI awards. It's like a very high design project, but outside of all the cool zoomy images and those types of things, which I love, it was really a relationship that was formed with a client that really made that one of the projects that really sticks out in my mind. The city of Fort Worth is just always great to work with. And it's like one of those things that it's a long time relationship. I did that project like 15 years ago. And
Wow.
to this day, like the project manager I worked with, the city of Fort Worth, he'll call me from time to time just to check on me and say, "Hey, how are things going, Kip?" And it's that kind of a bond and that relationship
Yeah.
that you start to form. And that was kind of on the facility side, but then with the police officers you worked with and kind of meeting those folks and their personalities and seeing and learning what they do from a day-to-day basis and what kind of things push their buttons and how they work and all those little facets in there. It's a fantastic thing to kind of experience and go through. And then like the challenges of construction and putting things together and the meticulous nature of that project was just something that really appealed to me. And then the final building when it was completed and done was something I'm very proud of to this day. And it's I still drive by on occasion and it's holding up pretty good. So
Yeah, look at that.
that
I know
one
who to
sticks
name drop when I'm in Fort Worth and I'm pulled over. I'm like, hey, I didn't
out.
take that.
Well, since I've worked with the PD, you might not want to do that because they might just take you right to jail. And then they laugh. They laugh the whole time.
They laughed the whole way.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
let's
good.
take you to that substation he built.
Yeah, they'll be, oh yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
they're fun. They're a fun group. They really are.
yeah.
On the multifamily side, there's a project that just kind of stands out, and that's it was over by the area here in the Dallas Metroplex, and it was completed about 2 years ago. But it's called the Muse, and it was really a mixed use. The main component of that was rental units and sitting on top of a podium. But it was one of those opportunities that you see where you get to do a little bit more with it. The client kind of had a different directive. A lot of times we'll see in these things where the client is a developer, they develop the property, build it and they manage it for a couple of years and sell it off. Now this client on this one, when they saw the designs that we came up with, they started to really fall in love with it. So they're like, hey, we're actually going to hold on to this property and we're going to keep it. And so it changed a few things on how we were doing it. The person that heads up that development firm, he's trained as an architect, so he jumped right in it. He's there side by side making decisions, down to picking the finishes on the handle of the front entry doors, and it became a really great project. I mean, I think it was like about 5 or 6 months later, it was already like 98% leased out.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
we opened it, it was
Yeah.
it's very hip place to be, I think, in the Metroplex
That's
for
right there
rental.
by the Galleria. Like, yeah, twist your arm,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
it's nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's very
it,
cool.
it pops out a little bit. It's got some wooden
Well, yeah, you
features.
designed it, dude. So of course it does. So
Well, it's
talk
like,
about, yeah, I was just gonna get you to like talk about unique design, but and I'm seeing this more, well, uh, like it's not prevalent, but it's cool when people do it. Talk about, and it's happening more overseas more than it is in the US, but the living walls. So the people
hmm,
using like vegetation on the outside of the buildings. There was one in Singapore where they built this huge tower
hmm,
and everything around there was like metal and glass. And they're like, we don't want to be that, right? We don't want to be
hmm,
that. So they attached this red metal, basically trellis all
hmm,
around the building. And then and as it grows up, so it changes colors, right? So you've got green and you've got red. And as it grows up, but then they also chose vines that bloom in different parts of the year. So
hmm.
in the spring they bloom, and in the summer they bloom, and in the fall different ones bloom. So they have different colors all the time. It's just really kind of a neat concept, and it'd be more cool if people here embraced it. But how hard would that be to do? Like, I mean, you basically have to have water to it, right? But whatever, right?
Well, so you might be a little bit surprised, but that is not something that is uncommon necessarily. I mean, it's not as prevalent as we might hope, but it kind of goes on with the trend of sustainability
Right.
and design. And so there's a project that also in the Dallas Metroplex that I worked on, which was a multifamily project, and we actually incorporated live walls in that, and it's actually the West Commerce, or actually it's called the Langford now. It's right off of West Commerce, but
Yeah.
we've got the live walls on those, and it can be challenging, especially in a Texas climate with the heat. I mean, things tend to grow, but you get that triple digits going out there, and it can do some pretty significant damage to the things that grow. So we're very strategic on where we place those and how those go together. But there's multiple ways to do that. There's actual kind of like prefabricated systems, kind of like the trellis you're talking about, but it's like a kind of a wire thing,
Mhm.
where you can incorporate those in the building. But they can be pretty costly. So a lot of times, to try to meet the budget we have on projects, we can self-fabricate those out of materials like using kind of a wire and like miscellaneous steel, and then create those trellises for the vines to grow on. Then you have to work hand in hand with your landscape architects to make that work. And there's specific plantings that they select based on the side of the building it's in. If it's in direct sun, is it in the shade?
Mhm.
Those components. And there's certain things that can flourish and how they grow, and like you're talking about, where they bloom at different times. So it's either
Yeah.
you can use like one type of planting, or you can use multiple to kind of see that ever changing I guess facade that you'd have based on a living
Right.
wall.
Right. And the living walls, do they provide any sort of like R value? Or are they helpful in that way they do it? Or they're just doing it to look cool? Or are they doing it to help the environment because they're producing oxygen? I don't know. Like, what's the plan behind the living walls?
Well, I mean, they do like on the oxygen side. Now, as far as like the R value, and so do they provide an R value? Yes, they do, just because there's some bit of mass to them. However, there's not going to be an R value that you're going to realize for code to like if you're going down the route of, hey, I want to reduce the amount of insulation thickness on my wall, so
Mhm.
because I'm using these plants,
You do that?
that's a tough challenge to get through a municipality on the code review because it's really hard to quantify, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean, you can use it kind of to help alleviate kind of the heat gain sometimes on the walls that would radiate into the actual building or the unit. I mean, there's
sure.
things like that I mean you can intellectualize but maybe not formalize as far as getting
Yeah.
points or code
Aw,
reductions in your R value.
aw.
But I mean the reality is you have a better building, right?
Yeah,
And some of that is on the aesthetic side. Some of it is you're contributing back to kind of the environment, like you said, on the oxygen and trying to help uh, help that aspect of it. And then there's you're doing something that's a positive experience, I think, for people as they walk by. I mean, everyone likes the softening that landscaping brings into a very hard and concrete society, like when you're in a metroplex like Dallas or Fort Worth or Austin, Waco, even in some areas. It depends where you are. I mean, it's the concrete jungle being softened, and so see a lot of that with a lot of the park things that they're doing. And that's where a lot of times with the high rises, you'll see the green roofs and the green walls being incorporated in that to really try to soften that up a little bit
yeah.
and and provide a better experience.
That's cool. All right. So, anything else you want people to know about you? Are you excited to be on our team?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've known you for so long, so it's nice
I
to
know. Working with friends, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice working with people that you know and trust. So that's a great thing. And
Yeah.
I think the thing that excites me about it is I know your vision and kind of it's very forward thinking. So I really like that and the appreciation for the things that we do on our side on the architectural side. It's you value that, so I think
Yeah.
that's very redeeming.
All right. Well, awesome.
Cool.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right.
Bye.